One of the most important questions today is, how might the Trump presidency evolve and how might it end? We've developed 6 scenarios of the future of the Trump presidency. What do you do if you don't know what the future is going to be like? You develop scenarios. Scenarios are not predictions. On the contrary, scenarios are unlikely by definition. A scenario only needs to be plausible, imaginable, conceivable, but not necessarily probable. Scenarios mark the corners of the so-called possibility space, which means everything that's going to happen in the future really lies between those marks. You don't know what the weather is going to be in 4 weeks, so you map all the conceivable weather situations between rain, sunshine, and snow. Let's look at our 6 scenarios for the Trump presidency. Be better prepared and less surprised. Do you remember Silvio Berlusconi, the Italian Prime Minister? We call the first scenario American Berlusconi. In a way, he was entertaining, he was a show star, a very rich guy, egocentric, narcissistic, ruthless, a lady killer, and a passionate liar. Politics was all and only about him. He did moral, political, and financial harm to his country. But it didn't ruin his country, Italy, nor did it real harm to world politics. Like Berlusconi, Trump is already frustrated to experience that he's not the unquestioned boss of the United States. But rather, in a functioning democracy, he has 324 million bosses. Donald Trump experienced to be pretty much above the law all of his life. Nobody said no to him, never. In the scenario American Berlusconi, Trump would annoy the hell out of the majority of US Americans in the world. The media would keep raging in despair. Protesting crowds would be seen virtually everywhere. The job as president would remain largely undone, let alone the delivery on the campaign promises. His term would be remembered as the most bizarre presidency in recent history. But soon after Trump's singular term, a new elected president would fix the major frictions within a year. Scenario number 2, we called Trumponomics. Donald the Dealmaker Trump could, just as a scenario, be very successful in pressing and paying and even blackmailing businesses to create jobs. Massive investment in infrastructure would be another strategy of choice to employ more people. Self-deportation of frustrated and intimidated people would leave the jobs to real Americans. And Trump would report double the real numbers, and his voters would, of course, believe him. Much of what used to be common sense on economics could work the other way around for a few years. It's conceivable. Economists believe that it helps the economy when countries trade their strengths. That's because of comparative advantages, which means one country is better in one discipline and the other is better in the next. Common sense says we all lose when we try to protect our market. But what if this is not always the case? What if they're wrong? Or what if there's a time lag of a couple of years? Then Trump could appear as the successful dealmaker he himself believes to be. Such a strategy would, because of tax cuts, probably make federal debt explode. But his people couldn't care less, because that hits them only in the future, and people tend not to care about the future. It might be hard to believe, but all this could earn Donald the Dealmaker Trump even a second term. And the nationalist parties in other countries would point to Trumponomics and would consequently experience a major upswing in popularity and outright majorities for nationalist or patriotic agendas. Scenario number 3, we called Trumpeachment. This scenario is easiest to think, but not the easiest to happen. With a majority in the House of Representatives and the Senate, where a majority of 2/3 is required for an impeachment, a really big thing would be necessary to happen to make Republicans vote against their president by such a margin. But the next midterm elections in 2018 could change the balance of power in Congress. Never has a US American president ever been removed from office through impeachment before. But also, never have the United States had a president like Donald Trump. Widespread resistance and subversion within the agencies and authorities could paralyze the Union and the states. So, what could be reasons for Trump to be impeached? Plot 1. A felony or high crime while in office, or a serious constitutional breach or treason he kept secret, like being caught while making business deals for the Trump Organization. Judging by what happened so far, this is quite conceivable. With his business and his behavior, Donald Trump is substantially prone to such a plot. Plot 2. Unequivocal evidence that someone, for example the Russians, have compromising and embarrassing video and audio material so they can make Trump do what they want. Plot 3. It could become obvious, even to his own party, that Donald J. Trump is or becomes mentally unfit to lead the most powerful nation in the world. Many psychologists and psychiatrists have claimed throughout his campaign that the now president suffers from malignant narcissism. This makes him unable to make rational judgments when dealing with existential threats. Malignant narcissists do whatever they can to protect their ego, no matter what the cost and the casualties are. Plot 4. Not really an impeachment, but Trump could kind of impeach himself by resigning because he gets sick of the stress and the mess that a president has to live with. Or simply he resigns because of health reasons. After an impeachment, the vice president would take the oath of office immediately. If both were impeached, we would see the Speaker of the House as president, currently Paul Ryan. All this may result in a relatively normal Republican presidency after the smoke is gone. Scenario number 4, we called Trump in peace. The Trump in peace scenario needs to be included in our set of possible futures, if only just for the sake of completeness. Trump was 70 years old when elected. He's the oldest man ever to become president of the United States of America, be it through illness or even through assassination. It happened several times in US history that a president died while in office. Scenario number 5, we called World Trumped on Fire. What people fear most is that the Trump presidency leads to a major global conflict. With Trump teasing and insulting foreign leaders in an unbelievable number and pace. With Trump overriding all established rules of diplomacy. With Trump at cold war with 1.6 billion Muslims in the world, such that it gives solid justification for radical and terrorist groups to recruit masses of angry young men and women to fight the United States and the West as a whole. With the geopolitical tensions that had risen even before Trump became president. There are so many potential fuses to be lit by even a minor incident and the chains of events to follow. Apparently, Donald Trump wants to keep his team small. Experienced officials in the government have left their jobs or were forced to do so. The diplomatic capacity is depleted at large. Even a single tweet may cause some emotionally challenged leader on the other side of the world to put his finger on dangerous triggers. Likewise, some kind of next 9/11 event could easily lead the Team Trump to find attacking a major Muslim country an appropriate act of retaliation. Allegedly, Steve Bannon is fascinated by war. He even predicted that the United States will fight a war in the South China Sea. And he said, there is no doubt about that. Scenario number 6, we called Trumpocracy, which is Trump and Autocracy. The scenario is introduced with a few observations. Some people have compared the Trump team to a crew for a pirate ship. In political terms, pirates are up to do a coup d'etat, which means they take over the country and destroy the traditional structures. The way to deal with facts and truthfulness is astonishing to say the least. Only what's favorable information is accepted as real. And the media, the opposition, they have a hard time to stop it. Ignoring norms, appointing a political advisor like Steve Bannon to be member of the National Security Council violates the traditional norm that politics and national security should be separate. Steve Bannon even said he wants to destroy the state. He said he wants to bring the establishment crashing down. Decisions with global impact are made within a small group and are only poorly checked with experienced experts. Gag orders are issued against authorities to prevent them from publishing scientific facts like data on the environment. Action is taken in an astronomical speed, maybe to overwhelm or fatigue the public, the opposition, and the media. Blatant disrespect is shown for the judiciary. Loyalty to the leader, not experience, is the strongest qualification on the Trump team, and to be in the inner circle. The office of the President of the United States is unbelievably powerful and by definition has no potential conflict of interest. And still, 40% of voters support this. Let's look into the scenario. Trumpocracy. Autocrats need enemies, so they make sure they are there, or they construct them. All-time highs in crime and terrorism are not true, but people believe it's true, and this is what the government needs. The media is declared to be partisan, to be the opposition, even the enemy. Like in the Trumponomic scenario, jobs would be created in masses, even if only at the cost of a massive rise of debt. And jobs would become vacant because of people with Latino or Muslim background leaving the country. They call it self-deportation. A new political party of the people could be established, with millions of previously forgotten people joining. And all those too who don't want to be left behind and who want to profit from the new era. Blue and red as the political colors would be defeated by gold. A new media consortium would be built to tell the truth directly from the mouth of the president and his team, and from enthusiastic supporters who report about their jobs and the new house they were able to buy because of the new government program. The shareholders of the media consortium would appear to be newbies in the business. Nobody knows them, and the population relies largely on this source. The president would appoint hundreds of federal and state attorneys that favor him. The national security agencies are directed to observe the American people for the sake of security and safety. And any global political event would be used to justify even harder ruling. In our Trumpocracy scenario, research in climate change and other sorts of social problems would be defunded to help the short-term profit be more important than the long-term benefit for the environment and for sustainable development. Businesses would profit from including the Trump MAGA fund in their list of shareholders. It would make sense. Just as in Russia, Hungary, or Turkey, mind your own business and nobody will bother you. Everyday life in the United States would be quite the same for most people, as long as they don't seek justice or truth. Near is my shirt, but nearer is my skin, could be the pragmatic motto. It pays to be part of the Trump phenomenon, and it doesn't cost anything to remain silent. And even today, you can be put on the public list of sex offenders for urinating publicly because it's indecent exposure. And there's even an app for it, the nice tool to silence people. It would be a social norm to be careful of what you write in your emails. California would make the Calexit, leave the Union as decided by a vast majority of their population. Russia and China would feel called to be the new leaders of a post-Western world order. Autocratic partners worldwide learn from each other. France and Poland and many more would join the group of so-called patriotic nations. In 2024, Donald Trump Jr. would appear as the only plausible candidate to protect and build on his father's legacy. Well, why should Donald Trump do all that? Because it's cool to be the boss of the United States of America and to make favorable deals that nobody can check. These were the 6 scenarios, our scenarios and your scenarios, on Trump, on how the Trump presidency might evolve and end. Number 1, American Berlusconi. Number 2, Trumponomics. Number 3, Trumpeachment. Number 4, Trump in peace. Number 5, world trumped on fire. And number 6, the Trumpocracy. So, what do those scenarios mean for your organization, for your country, your school, your state, or your company? Find out. Be better prepared and be less surprised. Have a bright future.